What happened, Washington? All those bullet holes in your jacket? How are you alive?
I don't know.
You have no military service.
And it's just around the bend.
You are a boy. You are not British, yet they send you to speak for them. So that when you fail, they'll have someone to blame.
Young Washington, you lost in the New World.
Who does own this land, if not the one who has the will to tame it? You do not want to start a war. What do we do? We fight! Hold your ground! There is no retreat!
What are you called?
My name is George Washington.
Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the GEB America podcast. You know, July 4th this year, there's a little party happening. America turns 250 years old. And growing up, I loved the history of our founding fathers. Read so many biographies, both as a kid and as a teenager and into college, of our founding fathers. And one of them that I especially loved was that of George Washington. The interesting thing was we know a lot about what happened at the Revolutionary War period and when he came first to be in power, you know, the position of power as general and then into his presidency. But there's a lot we don't know about young Washington. And it's intriguing when you think about how much history actually happened prior to that year of 1776. So today we are so happy to have with us the screenwriters for the forthcoming movie Young Washington that hits theaters July 3rd. Everywhere. Please welcome everybody, Diederik Hoogstraten and Tom Provost. Gentlemen, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time for us. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the speakers and not necessarily those of GEB America, Oral Roberts University, or their employees. This program is not intended to offer investment, financial, medical, legal, or any other advice. Viewers should consult a subject matter professional regarding any such matters.
Thank you for having us. Very much.
Yeah, great to be here, Dave. Thanks.
So where did this idea or this opportunity start for you guys? I'll start with you, Diederik. You know, have you always been into writing historical adaptations, or how did you get involved in this?
Well, it's all started with John Irwin, the brain of John Irwin, the director of this film, and he co-wrote it with us. You know, when John started his studio, the Wonder Project, he had two projects in mind that he just wanted to do desperately, and he'd been thinking about them for years. And I think around Hollywood, people had said to him, maybe sounds interesting. If you really want to do that, start your own studio. And so that's what he did. When he was ready to write the story of young Washington, he approached first me, and I brought in Tom, my trusted friend and co-writer, and previously my professor of screenwriting when I learned the craft. And the two of us sat down with John Irwin for many, many hours and basically downloaded what was in his brain. He knew the story. He knew he had a vision, really, of telling this story the right way. He basically hired us to do it with him. And I will say, unlike you and Tom, Dave, I came to American history a little bit later as a college student. I really started to realize how special, how magnificent, how interesting it was. I've been an ardent student of American history since then, but so it's a little more recent than I would say, especially Tom.
So Tom, you though, interesting take is that you started at a very young age with your dear mother teaching you, because she was an American history professor. Tell us about what it was like growing up with her talking about it. I'm going to guess that it was kind of like anybody else who has a parent that is influential in teaching a particular topic. You probably really weren't that into it.
I was not into it at all. And it was frustrating to her at times. She was a great teacher. She loved American history. She taught the Revolution and Civil War and Reconstruction. Those were her specialties. And a funny story, when my brother and I were kids, every summer we would take those family vacations from hell. We lived in Texas, and you'd get in the big station wagon and we would drive across the country. And my brother and I were like, let's go to Disneyland. Let's go to Disneyland. Every summer we saw every Civil War battlefield. I mean, hello, like, and we're just like, oh. And her genius, though, was that when I came to American history, I had been to all those places, and I was blessed with good teachers, so it came alive a little bit. But what I've joked with Diederik and others about is that I really had no interest in any of this until we got this job, and my parents died young, and she's laughing from heaven at the fact that I had to read 5 biographies of George Washington and all this other American history. And now, because of the project, I had to immerse myself in what she loved. So she's enjoying that quite a bit.
So let's talk a little bit about the making of the movie. Obviously, when you put pen to paper, or in this case, letters on a screen, how does what you are writing and what you hope will become on to the screen by Irwin and the how does that happen as you write it? Are you thinking about like, man, this right here, this scene here, is paramount to the movie? I've got to write it in a certain way that they're able to take that and really recreate what I'm trying to communicate.
I mean, we were blessed in the sense that John basically said, once we set up his vision, we're basically adapting his vision, write it like it's, a Michael Bay $200 million movie. So we did not restrict ourselves when we were writing it, and that those restrictions came later, which aren't as restricted anymore because of so much of what you can do in post-production now. So we had a lot of fun writing whatever we wanted to write. Right, Diederik, I think.
Absolutely. What was really cool, Dave, like Tom and I have done some projects together where we either adapt a work of fiction, a written text, a book, or you start from scratch with your own idea. In this case, we had a director who is, in my view, visionary in everything that he does. People would know him from Jesus Revolution and I Can Only Imagine and many other great he's done. And television, of course, House of David is his big hit show of the moment on Amazon. But so from that vision for us to say, okay, first of all, to truly understand what he envisioned, what he meant, to then write it and get a stamp of approval. He was really quite pleased, I think, with what we did. What was interesting to me, Thomas has been at this longer than I have, but it was an interesting experience for me to realize that we wrote a first draft that we felt pretty good about. Then a script gets kind of reworked. A lot of people put their hands on it, and that's understandable and necessary. However, because John Irwin was, it was his idea, it was the genesis. He was also the director. He's one of the producers, and he was in charge of post-production as well. When you now see the movie, it's very close to the draft that Tom and I got to write in the very beginning 3 years ago. So it was an awesome experience to collaborate closely with each other and with John and to really capture that vision and hopefully a compelling story about this young man.
Well, I will tell you too. Go ahead, Tom. I want to hear.
All right. I was just going to say on that topic, in reality, as someone who's written a lot in this industry, writers in general are because we write and then what is on screen is very different than what we wrote. And you're very grumpy about it. And this is one of the few times where when I finally saw the finished movie, I was quite thrilled. It's an excellent movie. And even as the writer, I'm very happy. We're very happy with how it turned out.
Yes.
Well, and for those that are familiar with John's work, like you said, House of David and Jesus Revolution, when I first saw the trailer, I didn't realize he was the director. Because I didn't look at any of that. I didn't even look at who was in the movie because I like to look at trailers that way, and then I'm like, that's Kelsey Grammer. Oh, that's a cool role. Or that's Ben Kingsley, or some of the other actresses and actors I recognize. And then when I found that out, I'm like, well, it doesn't feel like something. It didn't look like the style. You know how every director tends to have a style. It really looked the way it should, I think. Because it was, such a point in history, the frontier. I thought it was interesting, because of course I knew this from growing up in Ohio history. We knew about Washington's excursion into the Ohio wilderness, which was funny to me as a kid because Ohio is not wilderness, at least not. And not in the sense that it wasn't, it was the Northwest almost at one point if you were leaving Virginia. So I'm curious about this because did John share with you guys in your writing, there's been a lot done about Washington prior, I really would say from his 20s forward, lots of books. I mean, yeah, they talk about his childhood and different things, but did he share with you why he wanted to, and then that gave you guys a vision to really tell a story of this young, kind of inquisitive, yet already had some strong leadership qualities, young man that ultimately, I believe, without him, we wouldn't be here in this country. So tell us about that in that communication with John.
Well, I think John has a deep interest in origin stories. He would confirm this. And House of David, if you've seen it, of course, is about who was King David, before we knew him as King David. And similarly, I think he just, once he had realized, like, okay, this extremely important figure, as you rightly say, Dave, without him, I'm pretty sure there wouldn't have been the America we know today. How did he become the boy, the young man, the man that he was, the leader that he became? And he had done the research before even talking to us, realizing every biography has, 20 to 50 pages about those early years. They're all based on the same set of facts that is limited. Of course, we're talking about the 17th, right? There's just not a lot or that survived from that time. He was also a deeply private person. We know that. So we were able to take those facts and to interpret, to take creative license, as you, of course, do as filmmakers. But yeah, he desperately wanted all of us really to know how this great man, this particular great man, became great. Another way of putting it would be who he was before he became great. And yet one more way would be, what did he have to go through to get there? Because it's clear to all of us, having done this story now, that, it was his endless array of challenges, tragedies,
yes,
struggles and stumbles. And you see that even in the trailer. Those are the things that forged him into the leader that he later became. Like without all of that, and Tom can speak to this a little bit more, without all of that, he might never have gotten there either.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that goes to one of the main reasons John wanted to tell the story, which is that as difficult as, I always want to call him George, and I shouldn't do that in public, like as President Washington. I don't know how we should refer to him, but I'll just say George. As difficult as his life was, it is what made him a great man. And his story, we think, is very edifying and very encouraging to any of us. But I would say particularly, like I'm a college professor and my students, 18 to 26, have a lot of difficulties now and sometimes don't look at the world in a positive way. And this is a story that is very encouraging to any of us because you can see how failure and disappointment can foster something wonderful.
Yeah.
So we like to think that the movie has a really strong message that way.
Yeah, I like what the film synopsis said that they sent me, that he must confront not only his enemies, but the man he is becoming.
Yes. And his own...
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, talk about a little bit, we have a lot of moms and dads that watch and listen across all the different platforms. And we've done a number of either Wonder or Angel projects where we brought in guys that are influential, have either been directed or told stories or written or or acted in roles. And I always like to ask this is July 3rd, the movie comes out. Moms and dads, grandparents are looking for things to do with kids this summer. We all do. I can tell you. What is it about this film that you would say to them makes it a worthy of the spend and worthy of taking friends, family, church friends, all of that to see it? And I'll let either one of you grab that one.
And I'll throw it to Diederik in a second, but it's just a great story. It's an adventure tale. There are two amazing battle scenes in it that are very appealing to everybody. There's romance. He doesn't get the girl. He goes through so much difficulty. It's a very unifying movie, but it's just a great story. It's very exciting and fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And that is really a key point for us as filmmakers too. We all know we live in a fraught moment in history.
Mm-hmm.
culturally, and I do believe this movie is in no way partisan or even political, even if it's about one of the greatest politicians of the modern era. It is, as Tom said, it's truly unifying. It's about the genesis of this great country. And, as an American by choice, someone who came here, because I've seen how other countries work, I really have a deep admiration and respect and love for this country. Became a citizen only about 9 years ago. Greatest day of my life, to be honest. Well, after my wedding day. But, people like me can truly value, I think, and see what makes America so special because we've seen how it works in other places. And what this movie tries to do is not overtly be patriotic necessarily, but show you one of the people, and it's actually a group of people, because obviously it's not just about a young George Washington who started to think about sort of the greatness, the potential greatness of this independent nation and the very, very early days of it. Now, I want to add, Dave, as a father of relatively young kids, on July 4th, you have the parades in the morning, you might have fireworks at night, and that leaves an entire day in the middle.
Perfect.
And that's just July 4th. And then it's a whole long weekend. I also know, and I'll bring this up, that we are up against a formidable competitor on the July 4th weekend for anyone with kids, because it's the Minions. The Minions are coming out with their 87th, installment. My kids love the Minions too, and it's fine. But I feel like with George Washington, with young Washington, we can possibly take on the Minions, maybe.
I think we should
I think
Barbenheimer. We should have done like Minion Washington or Young Minions.
Young Minions. Yeah, right.
you need like a little animated thing at the beginning. That would be great. Well, and I think that the great thing is and I know this was on purpose, obviously, but coinciding with the obvious pageantry of the 20th birthday. People are going to already be feeling more patriotic than in a given year.
Yeah.
I was just a small child when we did the 200 year. My parents tell me more about it than I recall, but this is a big deal, and it's important. And I've been talking to my kids. I've got both somewhat older kids and some younger kids, and we've been talking a lot about history. I love history. I obviously don't probably know as much about this story as you guys, since you immersed yourselves, but grew up reading the biographies of our great founders, both men and women, and love to tell my kids the things that they, for the most part, don't seem to know or don't learn unless you have somebody like a parent teaching them and then reinforcing it. Take them to a movie like Young Washington, because they're going to learn things like how many kids that have come through all of the schooling even knew there was a French-American war, that there was anything going on before we just decided we're done with Britain and we dumped the tea in the harbor. I mean, it's amazing to me how so much of that is really it's lost in part of what kids learn these days.
Yes.
And that he started it. I mean, that's the thing that amazes me. Like, he almost alone, George Washington, started the French and Indian War and this global crisis.
That's right.
Today, right? It was a disaster for him, and yet he still survived.
Yeah, and there's so many moments in the movie, Dave, that I think you'll enjoy this as a bit of a history buff yourself, that Tom and I really made a point to hammer home these moments where most other men, most other people would have said, you know what, I am really done. I will never, ever again go onto a battlefield, travel to Ohio, the wilderness that you talked about. There's so many of these moments where most of us would have said, like, whew, man, I messed up, I'm done. And he does show that integrity, by the way. There's numerous times when he takes the consequences and bear that's a heavy cross to bear. We'll see in the movie. But he keeps going back to what he believes ultimately is his calling. And that's where the germ of that sort of that greatness is, I think. One thing I wanted to add to, I've always loved history, European history, when I grew up in Holland, but it stayed dry for me. It sort of stayed, just books without pictures, really a lot of letters when I was younger. And what I thought was such a privilege to do this with Tom and John Irwin was to try to bring this bit of history really to life, come to life, make it exciting and invigorating and adventurous. And there's, of course, a lot of drama. There's also the romance that I think Tom alluded to. There's a girl who he definitely has his eye on, and there's letters and there's infatuation, and he doesn't get the girl. And so we've tried to make this maybe similar to The Patriot, the Mel Gibson movie, something that, you really want to watch and really enjoy while learning a little bit about American history.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because I actually thought of The Patriot earlier, is for people that are like trying to draw some comparisons to, the battle skirmishes, and, there was romance, obviously, with Heath Ledger's character in that movie. Are there some similarities in some stylistic ways or in the way you told the story?
I think we're kind of original. I don't mean to sound arrogant, but it's just his story. And John has Diederik repeatedly, says today and always says, and he's 100% true, John is a visionary. And even in a lot of the stuff he's doing in post-production in Hollywood right now, he's very much a visionary. And it's Georgia's story filtered through John's filmic vision. And I will be arrogant. I never thought I would meet someone who knew more about movies than I do, because I'm a total movie nerd. It's all I do and talk the time I was 2 years old. And then I met John and I was like, oh my goodness, this guy knows so much more about movies than I do. It was very humbling. He very much believes in the audience, and he wants to provide a movie that is satisfying to the audience and that the audience understands. And you see that so much in his storytelling and in his directing, the way he moves the camera and how clear certain story aspects are. And it makes a very satisfying story to watch, as opposed to, I'll be pejorative here, and I love weird, random, independent movies, but as opposed to, a bunch of people sitting around on a couch bitching about their lives, this is in Hollywood, they call it a 4-quadrant movie. Everyone who goes to see this can relate to it and is going to enjoy it.
Let me ask you guys this, because I think will help people. Talk about the timeline, because we keep saying young Washington. Talk about, what is the timeline of George's life we're peering into? You mentioned the 1750s. So it's the early days, but kind of give people an idea.
Yeah, so he's, we basically open the movie when he is a 9-year-old boy. So we're talking around 1740 there, where he loses his father. And that's not really spoiling anything, because that's the very, very start of the movie. And it sets him up for, for these challenges and struggles that we've talked about. Then we basically take him into his early 20s. So there's a couple of jumps in the movie. There's different actors playing him, obviously. But we ended before he's 25. And to realize, I was once 25. I barely knew, how to cook a meal. Like when we look at the final scene of this movie, and I will not give that away, but he's becoming a leader. He knows himself. He has discovered much of the known world at that time. He has moved up in the political class in Virginia. He has gained the respect of the men and women, including his own mother, who he desperately craved respect from. And so to realize, of course, it was a different time, but this special young man, what he went through and how he grew and developed into basically around 1755 is where we leave it. It's remarkable in my view. Tom, anything else?
Well, I would just throw in, it's not a political movie and it's not a religious movie. And yet there's no way to look at George Washington's life and not see directly, as the people who lived around him and both were friends with him and fought him, it was very clear to people at that time as well that a divine hand was guiding him. So many things happened in his life, and I've been giving some spoilers away, so I won't go into the spoilers, but there are things that happened in his life that we focus on in the movie that it's very clear God was guiding this young man towards a destiny, and one that he at times did not want and would even turn down, and ultimately out of humility would accept, like the presidency. So a great thing to see in the movie is that divine hand guiding him and taking care of him, and whether he wanted it or not, saying, you have a destiny and I'm taking you there. It kind of reminds me of Jonah. Jonah is he might be my favorite character in the Bible. Jonah didn't want to do what he did, and God's like, we can do it the easy way or we can do it the hard way.
We can do it the hard way, but you're going to do it.
Which is the story of my life too. And this in some ways to me is very much the same.
So let's talk about the cast, because people are going to recognize, I already kind of spoiled it a little bit when I said Kelsey Grammer and Ben Kingsley, but also a lot of people are going to recognize Andy Serkis, who I love. Of course, you're going to remember him from movies like Planet of the Apes and, of course, Lord of the Rings. Joel Smallbone is a part of this. And, of course, if you know kind of the Smallbone family of both media and music, you know that Joel has been very present in music for a long time. But talk about the guy, William, the George, the main kind of 20-something George. Talk a little bit about him, and I'll let either one of you can grab that.
I'm going to give it to Diederik, but I'm just going to say this young man, the movie lives or dies on George, and this young man is going to be an enormous star. Diederik, you can tell you, he's great.
Agreed. And shows you how little I know about really ultimately about filmmaking. When we wrote this movie, I was envisioning any of the well-known 20-somethings, 30-something actors, like a huge A-lister. John Irwin knew all along he was going to find a relative newcomer, a young actor who could do this. And William Franklin Miller is brilliant. I agree with Tom. It's both men and also women watching this will really enjoy watching him. I guarantee it. But what he then did, he found these incredible names that you just mentioned, Dave, to surround him. So you've got Marie-Louise Parker as Mary, his mother. You've got, like you said, Grammer, Serkis, and of course, Sir Ben Kingsley. Tom and I had a great time writing Governor Dimwitty, terrific name as well. Obviously a real figure from history. But then to hear Sir Ben Kingsley say your word, bring that character to life in a way that we couldn't even have imagined was very special. And I think really that John got it right in finding the heart of the movie with Will Franklin Miller, and then surrounding him by all these people who we know and love. And to me, it's movie magic when you watch it.
Well, it is.
If I might real quick, something we loved talking about when we were writing it is that George Washington, among other things, was Tarzan. And we referred to him as Tarzan constantly in terms of building this character because he towered over everyone back then. He did physical feats that no one else could do. He loved the outdoors. He loved, running through the woods with his shirt off and his hair flying. And that way was Tarzan. And so it was also, I think, a difficult challenge to find a young actor who could portray both the regal, elegant quality that George had and very much aspired to, as well as this very physically imposing and strong guy who could lead a battle, before he even was prepared for it. And William is amazing at all of that. He is great in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the average height of everybody in the 1700s was like 5'6", 5'7", and he was over 6 foot tall. So yeah, I remember that was one of the things I remember reading in biographies was those feats, his ability to understand the outdoors, the things he learned, like the surveying and different things, his vision for exploration. He loved it, which I saw that in the trailer where they were talking about, he was obviously around Native American tribes. They're like, look, it's wild out there. It was wild frontier. Very different. If you've ever seen a Western, everybody, this isn't the Wild West. This is like, the Wild West in the woods, and everything is sneaking around trying to get you. So it was definitely, I could see that very well portrayed in the movie for sure.
Well, thanks. Hey, and I want to add, following up on what Tom was saying, like that, in addition to this imposing strength and also a sense of humor, by the way, and his wit and intelligence, there's also a development that we try to weave into the story where, early on, he is mostly driven by his own ambition, maybe his own ego, if you want to put it in those terms. Like all of us when we're young, we just want to be seen, we want to be recognized, we want to achieve. And even before he turned 25, before the end of the movie, we see him grow into a servant leader. He's learning the value of service, and that's where the meaning comes from. And that's why, if he's going to be ambitious, if he's going to keep rising to these occasions, it's out of service to his men, to the people sending him into the Wild West, if you will, to the people who he loses. There's some real losses there to his friends, and ultimately to Virginia, and then later to the country. But that sort of development, that growth was not easy to write, but I think, again, John Irwin, throughout post-production all the way to the end, managed to capture that development, and that's such an important part of him, even in these early stages.
Love that. Well, we are excited, obviously, for everybody to be able to see the movie and excited for them to share it and talk a little bit about what goes into, in your opinion, a great story being adapted for the movies. Either one of you can grab that. Like when you think of a biographical story like Washington or anybody else.
Well, one of my mantras with my screenwriting students is you have to be as hard on your characters as possible for the story to be satisfying and fulfilling. And we didn't have to do anything. His life was as hard life as humanly possible could be. And then you do have to tweak a little bit. And we believe this is a very historically accurate movie. I would say probably more so than most biopics. But there's also a phrase that bounces around Hollywood that's attributed to Aaron Sorkin, and it might be, where he says, never let truth get in the way of a good story. And so we work very hard to be truthful, but there's certain things, little tweaks we did, like he met Sally, some would say the love of his life, after she was married. We have him meet her right before she gets married, so there's maybe a little hint that she might change her mind and be with him. Kelsey Grammer's character is two characters combined. So when you adapt reality, if you do it step by step exactly how it happened, it's going to be pretty boring. One of the thrills here is that his actual story is pretty thrilling, but we still would make a couple of changes to the timeline just to make it even that much more of an exciting movie.
Yeah. And I think that as an active lover of movies and going to movies, we don't realize how much of that actually happens anyway. I know that, people always say, oh, I read the book. It's so different than the book, Of course, I think that happens more probably with fiction, because you can't possibly put a 600-page book into a movie.
Exactly.
Some stuff's got to be changed. Stuff's got to be left out. When you read a book, your imagination is creating the imagery in your head, whereas now somebody else who doesn't have your brain is creating images to go along with the story that they read. So it's obviously going to be a little different.
Exactly.
That's right. I will say the starting point was always this deep respect for him, the man, desire to get to know him better, and then also really trying to stay as close as possible to the truth of the circumstances and the era. And to that point, John and the team at Wonder Project did bring in a team of historians, just wanted to put that out there, who have sort of looked over our shoulder the whole way to make sure that, not that every fact or every scene in the movie is literally true, but that it is feasible and plausible, and that the veracity sort of the general story is there. And we wanted to make sure that again, as a way to show respect for the country, for the man, that we got it right in that way.
And the production team worked so hard on that. I mean, like down to the right buttons on the costumes. Diederik and I were able to go to the set one day. In Hollywood, writers are lower than like craft services and PAs in the parking lot. But we were invited to the set, and it was pretty amazing. It was a very moving day for me, both to meet the costumers and meet everybody who had worked so hard to bring this vision to life. But Diederik laughs at me because I kind of embarrassed myself. We went to the set and they were filming one of the big battle scenes. And as a writer, I had never experienced seeing something that big and majestic that Diederik and I had put on paper come to life. And I kind of embarrassed myself in front of the crew because I just started crying on the set.
Yeah.
I couldn't really believe what I was seeing. And the movie itself bears that out.
I was going to ask you when you were telling this, I was going like, did you cry? Because I think I would have too. I think I'd have been like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Don't be embarrassed, Tom. We love you. You did a great job. Now, is it true, though, that what you just said, though, is that you do sneak on to movie sets as craft services? Is that true?
I'll do anything to get on a movie set. Hey.
Well, okay, so last question, then I'm going to let you guys go. What other, going forward, are there other stories you guys would love to tell?
Yes. Diederik, take our next one.
Go ahead, Tom. No, you start this one.
Okay, well, one of my favorite novels in the world that I gave Diederik, and he fell in love with it really even more than I did, is a wonderful novel called Ordinary Grace by a great author, William Kent Kruger. He has a detective series, but this is a standalone novel he wrote. And Diederik and his company, his wife Kelly, have optioned it, and we are working on turning it into a limited TV series, and we're very, very excited about it. And then we have a couple of other scripts we're working on too.
Love
I
that.
will only add, Dave, one that your audience might know, especially the Christians among them, I've been privileged to work on a screenplay called God's Smuggler, which is a wonderful book based on the life of Brother Andrew, who smuggled Bibles you may have known it, during the Cold War. It's a terrific book, and there's a really good movie that's going to come out of this. I helped on the screenplay. That one is with a company called Reserve Entertainment, led by Darren Mormon. So that's in addition to the work that Tom and I are doing. We always have numerous things going on. That's one that I've done with a different team. And yeah, there's too many great stories to tell. And something else, Dave, before we go, I just wanted to mention that because we really believe that especially young people need to see this movie, that it's so valuable. Angel and Wonder Project developed this pay it forward idea where if you buy tickets now on the Angel Studios website or later in the theater, when you're in the theater, there's a QR code there. There's an easy way on your phone to buy a ticket for a middle school or high school student. There's millions of students in the country, obviously. Not all of them will have the opportunity to see this, might not know about it, might not have the means to do it.
Right.
It's very easy for all of us to buy a few extra tickets, share the joy, share that, that interesting story. And so that's pay it forward. You can go to Wonder Project Studio or the Angel Studio website and find more information there.
Well, and for our listeners that are maybe commuting or you're watching on a different platform, check the show notes. We'll have all the links there. The team has put those there. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube or on the feed that we've got with Pray.com, you've seen the trailer. So I definitely want you to take advantage of that. Pay it forward. Be sure that if you're not a member, to join up with Angel and what they do. It's a great way to also get free tickets to movies. Want to definitely encourage you to do that. Tom and Diederik, I've enjoyed this probably just because I just love history. I love it. And when I first when they reached out to me and they're like, "Would you be interested in this?" I'm like, "Of course." Like you should have just sent them to me. Like you don't even have to ask about this. But it is definitely something I'm looking forward to and taking the kids to see. And I think it's going to be I really believe it's going to be a great summer birthday treat in honor of America to go to the movies, get a big, I went to the movies a couple weeks ago by myself, right? And I got my own popcorn. It's like, it's something fun about that. I know we're in a post-COVID world, but do it.
Best.
It is the best. There are some movies that I will say, this is a movie I have to see on the big screen. I cannot see it on my flat panel at home. So this is one of those. I will tell you, to see the battle sequences and to really be in the story and let yourself kind of just lose yourself for a couple hours. This is one of those to go to the theater and see. So thank you both for being with us. It's been a pleasure. I hope to have you guys back again on a future project. For sure. For those of you that are watching or listening on Spotify or Apple or you're on YouTube, be sure you share this out. Be sure you send it to a friend. Say, hey, here's a great movie that's coming out. You should take the kids to. Or if you're a grandparent, send it to your kids and offer to buy tickets. And be sure to hit that bell on YouTube so you'll know when we drop a new episode every single week. We do that for you guys, and we thank you for letting us know how much you appreciate it. Again, I'm Dave Groves. This is the GEB America podcast, and we will see you next time.